guys, so I'm back with another video, thank God. Again, it was so funny, like I was rewatching my video from last time and I was like, okay, like, you know, looking at little things I might have done that I can like fix differently this time, and I think one of the big things is my intros. Like, I'm not the best at doing intros. I think it's just because like sometimes I don't want to dilly-dally and I just want to get like right into what I'm talking about, so my intros are kind of awkward at certain points, but I wanted to be able to kind of make this video and get right to the point as well. I don't really want to dilly-dally and like beat around the bush. So this video was really interesting when I was thinking of a topic again, because I wanted to think of something that was pretty relatable, something that I've experienced within my life. I know that my friends, close, like family, have kind of all experienced as well. One of the biggest things that I think is coming up right now, a big theme that I've been seeing across the board, is basically standing in your power. And when I say standing in your power, it does have something to do with confidence, but it also has a lot to do with an inner knowing of who you are as an individual. And a lot of times with confidence or certain areas of building confidence, there's just so many things out there I think that correlate to it. So as I began like my journey, I was very, I would say, insecure about myself. A lot of the things that I had gone through, I was very insecure, wasn't always making the right decisions that were going to benefit me, and I didn't really know where my power was. I a lot of times let external factors kind of let me dictate where my power was, and it took me a long time to really understand and cultivate like that inner power. And I would really chalk it up to looking at your inner power as, you know, your soul, the true core of who you are as an individual, your values, your beliefs, your morals. I think that's how you need to, when we're talking about standing in your power, that's a great way for you to, if you want to define what your power is having to kind of figure out, what do you value, what are your morals, you know, what's important to you, what do you stand up for, and it's also about knowing the things that you don't want to stand for. And as time goes on, I think as you start to experience certain situations in life, you help yourself cultivate what your inner power and what it means to stand in your power. So I was going over this in my head, and I wanted to kind of paint a picture for people how to have a better understanding of standing in their power, how they can cultivate, you know, that inner place so they can understand what their power lies, and then as well as they start navigating life, is being very understanding of your power, but also respecting other people, and not allowing your belief system or your values, your morals to ever get really out of hand where it could, you know, hurt you, hurt other people. So that's a big portion of what I want to discuss. So for me, I wanted to kind of give you guys an example of what it means to stand in my power, and maybe that'll help you paint a bit better picture of, as you figure out what it means to stand in your power. So I just want to kind of give you guys an example. So for me, standing in my power means being grounded. It means being grounded in my decision making, grounded in my thoughts, grounded in my emotions. So for me, I have to stand in my power by being very patient and not allowing for myself, an example is, it's about being patient for me and about listening to my inner emotions, my inner knowingness, and whether that's, you know, helping me get through a really difficult situation or a stressful situation. Standing in my power means being grounded and having the confidence in knowing that I might be feeling a little out of control in this moment, but I know that I have the power to bring myself back, and I have the power to also not allow it to let me be impulsive, act out of control, or act off emotion, or react. And that was a big, big piece for me, because I grew up as a very sensitive, emotional individual. I still am, but standing in my power has allowed me to be more aware of what it means to react and what it means to, you know, really find my safe place within. So the one thing I did want to also bring up was, when you stand in your power, it's tough at first. You know, I think when we're trying to figure out who we are, our belief system, you know, there's a lot of times you get challenged by other individuals, you get challenged by external, you know, factors. And I think the important part though is is remaining calm and remaining patient and knowing that if you do happen to kind of backtrack a bit. And I think it's really important for everyone to kind of, it's about also being patient with yourself and not beating yourself up, especially when you do have the moments where maybe you're not standing in your power. Maybe you feel like there are some times when you're giving your power away to someone. And when I say you're giving away your power to someone, that basically means if, let's say, you're in a situation where, someone is riling you up, they're getting you angry, they're saying hurtful things. Standing in your power means that you're listening, you're understanding it, but you're not translating it into how you view yourself. And you're not allowing it to dictate your inner world and your self-love and your self-respect. I think that's like a lot of times where we're very quick to hear what someone's saying to us and immediately get hurt. Where, we're going to get kind of caught up in our emotions and our reactions to a situation. And when you stand in your power, the more you understand that everything around you that's external, that it's kind of outside of you, you begin to see things very differently, and you also begin to understand what it means to, just observe and not react. And I think a lot of times, especially as someone who's an emotional individual, when individuals who are emotionally reactive, it's very quick to be in those situations, and it's kind of like do or die. It's either I react or that's it, I lose my power. And that's the crazy part, is that when you don't react, you actually don't lose your power. You're still within who you are as an individual, and you're not going to feel as emotionally distraught if you were to, react. And I think a lot of times too, with standing in your power, I think it takes also just wisdom and a guidance in a way to understand that as you just, you get older, you begin to know who you are and become more comfortable with yourself. It's a lot easier to stand in your power, and is also allowing yourself to understand that this is a journey and that it takes a lot of time and practice to cultivate that inner safe space. So I want to give everyone some kind of tips and tricks on how to get to that place. Really, I can only go off of the experience that I have and the things that have helped me, also things that have helped individuals, whether it's my friends, family, help them get in their, stand in their power. So one of the big things for me was journaling. A lot of times when I was in really difficult situations, or I felt really kind of out of my body, or I didn't feel as grounded, a lot of times what I did, I would write. Because by writing, I was putting everything that I was experiencing, feeling onto paper. And I was able to look back and say, okay, maybe what I was thinking in certain aspects or what I was feeling, maybe those weren't exactly always aligned with my inner values and more. Maybe I need to start changing my viewpoint on my emotions and how that correlates to my morals and values. So the journaling aspect helped me a lot. And I'm sure everyone hears this time and time again. Oh, journal, write down how you're feeling, all of that. I get it. It's kind of, you hear it all of the time. But I will say, not only did it help me in the moment, but it helped me years down the road. Because what I did was I also held on to all of those journals, everything that I wrote. So I'd hold on to all of that, because then what I was able to do was, when I got to a better place, when I started cultivating my inner confidence, my power, I was able to look back and I was able to see that growth. And I think a lot of times when you're actually able to take what you're feeling and put it on paper, and you're able to actually capture the growth from a tangible standpoint, the impact that has is way more powerful, because it's in front of your face. You know what I mean? You can't ignore the growth. So for me, that's why I think the journaling in the moment helped, but it also helped me in that long-term realization of what it means to stand in my power. So a lot of times what you can really just do is, it doesn't have to be a specific kind of way to write. I just personally recommend just getting a piece of paper, literally pour your heart out in a way. Write down why I'm feeling this way, what transpired, and then how I'm feeling later on. So for me, that was really the really important part. And then sometimes what I would do is, at the end of my writing, I would also write where I want to see myself and how I want to kind of recuperate and fix how I was feeling. And with that, like, I would always leave it off on a positive note for myself. You know, maybe I was having a really bad day and I wrote my emotions out, exactly what happened that made me feel that way, and then I would end my writing with saying, okay, but this is how I want to make it better. This is what I want to do. So you need to like almost have a plan of action. And every time I would write, I would end with like a plan of action, whether that would be something that an action from the standpoint of being able to do something productive for myself, or even if that meant changing the way I was perceiving the situation. So that I completely recommend, because with that, you know, you're kind of holding yourself accountable for changing or just evolving the parts of you that aren't serving your best interest. So as you start kind of peeling away the layers, you start seeing what works, what doesn't work. You start, you know, really understanding what's important to you and what's not important to you. It gets easier and easier, and you start almost going on autopilot in a way. And I don't want to say autopilot, but in a way it's a little bit easier for you to navigate and go through situations, because you kind of have the skill set and the understanding of what it means to, you know, be a confident person, be, you know, secure about your decision-making processes, and feel good about yourself without, you know, taking other people down and hindering other people. And that's another side to it, I will say, is when it comes to standing in your power, you know, there's also another important part where some people perceive, you know, when you start looking at morals about, you don't want to, I'm not saying you want to come from a place of being selfish, but a lot of times, you know, you have to make decisions that are right for you. And as you begin to become more confident in yourself, you're able to make those decisions in also a way that doesn't hurt other people, you know, because you're taking other perspectives into consideration. And I think a lot of times when people think they're standing in the power, that means, oh, I'm going to do what's right for me and only me. And that's not always true, right? A lot of times we can say, I stand in my power and I'm going to stand up for what I believe in, and I'm going to really stick by my morals and my values. But I'm also going to be empathetic and compassionate towards others, and I'm going to be able to communicate that in a way that they can understand where I'm coming from and respect me. And that is also true with my next part, is a communication key. I think a lot of times when we find how to stand in our power, the important part is you have the responsibility for yourself and others to communicate in a compassionate way. And a lot of times what I've learned too is that we really do need to understand that not everyone is going to receive information the same way as us. We've talked about this in my other video, is that the receival of information is completely different across the board for so many different individuals. And there's a million different factors that can correlate to that. But the one constant that helps is the perspective to understand and pick up on cues of the people around you, to understand how they communicate and how they're going to receive what you're saying. And I think that this just not only works within, you know, relationships, friendships, but this also works in your, you know, work relationships. How, you know, a lot of times I think, especially in our careers, you know, we want to be able to speak up for ourselves, but not come across as cocky, as arrogant, and there's definitely a way to go about that. So I will say a big part to, you know, standing in your power is also a communication aspect with everyone around you, and being able to portray that self-respect and communicate that self-respect, and having that, you know, in return from others. My last important point to standing in your power, I will say, is also the communication with yourself. That is what I have learned to be the most important part of having that confidence, of having that inner knowingness, is that communication with yourself. A lot of times when we're experiencing very difficult emotions, or we're not feeling as confident and as secure as we want to be, we really pick ourselves apart. We say the most hurtful things that other people might never even say to us. And I experienced that in the worst way possible. Would go through really difficult times and I would beat myself up. I would beat myself up by saying, you know what, you're not sticking up for yourself. You're not, you know, doing what's right for you. And I would just kind of push myself so far down that it was hard to pick myself back up at times. And I had to stop myself. And it took a long, long time of understanding that also the communication with myself had to be repaired, had to be fixed, because that's the most important conversation that you're going to ever have, is with yourself. So I began really just They call it, listening to your inner child. I began just trying to figure out, what do I need to really look at and, kind of pay attention to within me. And I could give you guys some examples. I began to realize that instead of putting myself down for being emotional, for being sensitive, I reminded myself that's okay to be emotional, to be sensitive, because I began to show myself, look at all the beautiful things that transpire from those aspects of yourself. I'm able to, when I'm, as an emotional sensitive person, I'm able to pick up on the emotions of others and, help them feel better. I'm able to pick up on little subtle cues and read, the energy of other people. So maybe that helps them feel a bit better, helps me feel a little bit better. So I began kind of changing the story in my head. And instead of looking at those things as negative things, I began explaining to myself, like, no, these are some great aspects of yourself that you should love and cherish. So I began changing that story within my head, and that made the world of difference. Like, that made a world of difference. And it really helped me kind of move forward. And I think that was the final piece that I really needed, was the inner dialogue and understanding myself better and being able to communicate with myself better, because then that changed my entire external world, and I was able to communicate with others better and communicate what I was feeling. So, I could find a solution while they could find a solution. So I know that's a lot with, about standing in your power, but what I hope you take away from all of it is the understanding that this doesn't happen overnight. This definitely takes time, and it takes a lot of patience, self-love, self-respect, and it's just a matter of being present, being aware, and then also just being kind to yourself and others. So, that is my whole thing about standing in your power. And I definitely feel like there's more to talk about, but I want to touch on some basic aspects of it. And I just felt like, I don't know, maybe someone needed to hear that. Maybe they need a little push in the right direction. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and, maybe if you have any ideas or maybe if you have any examples of what it means to stand in your power, let me know, because again, this is kind of just off of my own personal experience and the things that have worked for me, and I'd love to see if there were other examples that worked for other people. So yeah, just let me know what kind of worked for you, if anything's a little bit different, and hopefully I think of a really cool topic to talk about next time. But thank you guys for watching, and thanks for listening and being a part of this talk. I appreciate it. So I'll see you guys next time.